Bava Metzia Daf Amid Vez. We begin with the Mishnah near the top of the daf, which continues some halachas of defining a lost object, as well as the more specific halachas of prika and te'ina. Some of the halachas that are listed in the Mishnah are a bit confusing. The Gemara will explain them line by line. So let's begin. The Mishnah says if you find an animal in a barn, that does not mean you're obligated to return it to anyone. The Gemara will explain what's the chiddush. If you find it in the public domain, you are chayiv. If the animal was in a cemetery, and Rashi says you are a kayin, you're not obligated to return it. If his father says to him, return it, he still should not listen to him. In another situation, similar, if the object was in a place that you are permitted to go, and the father says, do not return it. Now you have a conflict. Should I listen to my father or should I listen to the mitzvah? So you should not listen to the father. You should go do the mitzvah of returning. Now we get to the mitzvah of prika and te'ina. Prika is helping someone unload his animal who is struggling under too much weight. Te'ina is helping load an animal which person is having difficulty loading. So first halacha, the Mishnah says, is if you load and he unloads, or you unload and he loads, you have to keep doing it again and again, even 4 or 5 times, like it says, aziv taziv, repeating that you should help him again. If the owner, however, decides to go sit on the side, and he says, since you have a mitzvah, you do it, then your party don't have to do it, because it's only imay. It says, ba'alav imay, azav taziv imay, if the man is helping you, unless he's an elderly or a sick individual, then you are chayiv. Now, is there a mitzvah d'oraisa? So everybody agrees that prika is a mitzvah d'oraisa. That's unloading. Loading, te'ina, Reb Shimon says is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Tanakama says it's not. Rabbi Saglili says if the weight is more than he can carry, you're not obligated to, because it says tachas masoi, his burden, that's a burden that he can stand in. Okay, the Gemara now begins first analyzing the halacha. The Mishnah said that if the animal is in a barn, you're not obligated to do anything with it. So first, Rava explains, and he says that we're referring to a barn which neither is forcing the animal to run away, nor is it guarding the animal to keep it within. If it would be forcing the animal to run away, it wouldn't be correct to say that you're not chayiv and that you are chayiv. This barn is going to chase the animal out. The Torah explains that it has no openings and the animal gets scared inside. So it's not forcing the animal out, because otherwise you would be obligated. It's also not protecting the animal. The door is not locked. It could easily leave. And therefore, you would have a havamina that you're supposed to do something about it. Kamashma in the mission that you don't have to do anything about it. Now, the Gemara says it's a kavachomer. If you would find it outdoors, it's enough for you to bring it indoors. So certainly if you find it indoors in a place that is basically protected, that is shamar, you wouldn't have to do anything further with it. Now, 2 versions of the next Gemara, Rav Yitzchak says that the Mishnah compared a barn to Rosh Hashanah. Said in a barn, you're pater Rosh Hashanah, you're chayiv. So says Rav Yitzchak, in a barn, you're pater, that is if it is inside the tchum. The implication of that is that Rosh Hashanah, you're chayiv, is even inside the tchum. Some say it the other way. Rav Yitzchak was on the case of Rosh Hashanah, and he said that you're chayiv is only if it's outside the tchum. And therefore, by implication, a barn that you are pater is even if it is inside the tchum. The next halacha the Mishnah had spoken about was that if the father tells someone not to return an aveda or tells a kain to be mitame, should not listen to the father. So the Gemara quotes Raisa that brings a drasha for that, specifically to say don't listen to one's father when he tells him to be an avera or to lose a mitzvah. The Raisa says, what's the source for that? Because it says, Ish imay v'aviv tirovas shabsoi say tishmaru ani Hashem. A person should fear his father and keep Shabbos, ani Hashem, I am Hashem, meaning all of you, both you and your father and your mother, are all obligated in my honor, and therefore you should keep my honor, keep my Shabbos, and don't listen to them if he says to violate it. Now says Gemara, why would I think that you should? Is it not an asay against a leis asay and an asay? So you should not push off the leis asay and asay, at least of Shabbos or of Aveda or of Tuma, just to be Mekayim the mitzvahs asay of Kabbalah Svicha V'Seimecha. So the Gemara answers, no, you may think that this asay has a special power to it because it's connected, it's hookash, it's linked to the covet of Shemayim. Because it says Kabbalah Svicha V'Seimecha, and a similar expression says Kabbalah Hashem Mehaincha. So therefore, I would think maybe it's stronger and it should defeat the asay and leis asay together. No, since the father himself was obligated to listen, therefore he had no right to say what he said, and it's null. Okay, next line in the Mishnah had said that there's a machlekes whether or not there's a mitzvah to do te'ina, to load up the animal. Says the Gemara, how can there be a machlokes about that? The Torah clearly says, hakim takim ima, you have a mitzvah to load up it. To help someone struggling to load, you have a mitzvah to help him load. Says the Gemara, no, that machlokes is not whether or not there's a mitzvah, the machlokes is whether there's a mitzvah to do it for free. Rabbi Shimon says you have to do it for free, just like Prika, you help unload the animal for free, that everyone agrees to. So te'ina, you also have to help load it up for free. According to the Rabbanan, however, no, Prika you do for free, but te'ina you're allowed to get paid for. You're allowed to say, I'm only going to help you with this if you pay me. So machlokes Reb Shimon and the Chachamim. Reb Shimon says you get paid, you do not get paid for Prika, and the Chachamim say you do get paid for Prika. Says what is machlokes based on? Machlokes is based on how you read the psukim. Is there a need for two separate psukim here? So what does the Torah have to say is a mitzvah to help the animal unload? If there's a mitzvah to help load, kal v'chomer, to unload where you're saving the distress, the pain of the animal, certainly you should be chayav to do that. So says the Chachamim, the reason why the Torah has to tell you that is because since the mitzvah to load is only with getting paid, I need the Torah to tell me there's a mitzvah to unload even without getting paid. Otherwise, it would have said is kal v'chomer, but you're limited to the mitzvah, to the halachos that you have and what you're learning from, and therefore you also only have to do it if you get paid. Now, says Rabbi Shimon, that's not the reason why the Torah has to say both. The reason you have to say both is because the psukim aren't clear which one's which. If I would have only said one, I would have assumed that it's unloading, and therefore I needed to say twice so that I know that you have both halachas. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Why is it not clear? In one, it says, Reivid's tachas masai, the animal is struggling under its burden. So obviously, that's talking about unloading. And the next one, it says, Neiflim baderech, falling on the floor. So the Chachamim say that's clearly talking about loading, because it's falling on the floor, meaning both the animals lying on the ground and the packages are on the ground. You're struggling to load. So therefore, it's clear. Rav Shimon says no. That means that the animal has fallen under its packages. That also sounds like unloading, and therefore it's not clear which pasuk is which. Gemara now gets a little bit into the concept of tsar balei chayim, the issur to cause pain to an animal. So Gemara says, you see from here that it is forbidden min haTorah, it's an issur d'oraisa to cause pain to an animal, tsar balei chayim. Why? Because both the Rabbanan and Rav Shimon say if the Torah would have clearly said to load, I would know the kal v'chomer, you have to have someone to unload. Why is that a kal v'chomer? It must be because it has tsar balei chayim. So you see, tsar balei chayim is an issur d'oraisa. So no, maybe it's not because of tsar balei chayim. Maybe it's because unloading causes a cost, a loss to the owner. That is, the animal's being injured, he's being devalued. So the Gemara, what do you mean? But what's kal v'chomer then? Kal v'chomer is that if you have to help load, which is no loss to the owner, certainly you have to help unload, which you're saving the owner from loss. So that the Gemara asks, but loading could also cause a loss. If the Torah says the mitzvah to load, it could also be in a case where there's a loss. Like, for example, it could be referring to a case of a loss. So like, for example, if you're on the way to the market and by being delayed in loading, he's losing out on the sales, or people could come and steal the slayer. So therefore, it could both be referring to a case of monetary loss, and if that's your only kal v'chomer, that wouldn't be good kal v'chomer. Says I have a proof that tsar balei chayim is an issur d'oraisa, at least according to the Chachamim, because if you see the end of the Mishnah, it basically says if it's overburdened, there's no mitzvah to unload it, because it says tachas masai, and masai therefore means under its burden, only a burden that it can carry. Says the Gemara then implies that the Tanna Kama holds that there is a mitzvah anyway. Why should there be a mitzvah anyway? The Torah did say tachas masai, must be that mitzvah comes from tsar balei chayim. So you see that they at least hold that tsar balei chayim is d'oraisa. So no, maybe not. Maybe they just don't hold to the drasha. They don't hold the drasha. Tachas masai means only masai that it could carry. It means any type of burden that it is carrying is called tachas masai, and therefore there is a chiyuv to unload because of that. Okay, so the Gemara can bring you another proof from here that tsar balei chayim this time is not d'oraisa. How do you know? Because the first halach in the Mishnah said that if the owner decides to sit on the side and say, you have a mitzvah, you do the work, you don't have to do it anymore. What happens to tsar balei chayim? Obviously, tsar balei chayim is not a d'oraisa. Says, well, no, maybe not. Maybe you still have an obligation to do it. The difference is now you can demand payment. If the guy is working as hard as he can and the Torah says help him, it's okay, so you help him for free. But if the guy decides to sit on the side and put up his feet, so then you could demand payment for it. But certainly because of tsar balei chayim, possibly you are obligated to help. Okay, the Gemara now continues bringing rayas, a series of 5 rayas with the siman given beforehand, behemas, oyev, soine, ravtzon. And these are going to take us past our Mishnah to other sugyas. So the first is from a Gemara that says that if the animal belongs to a Uveid Kachavim, then you do have to help, just as if it was a Behemas Yisrael. So that must be because of Tzar B'Chaim. Otherwise, why should you help an Uveid Kachavim? So the answer is not necessarily. It could be because of Eva, because you want to preserve good terms. You don't want to create animosity between the groups. So it's logical that that's the reason, because that would explain another halacha. There it says that if it's carrying wine, which is iser, you don't have to. Now, if it's because of you're afraid he's going to hate you, so you could get out of it by saying, I can't help unload that, that's usher to me. However, if it's referring to, because of tsar Bava Metzia, was it help that the wine is iser? Either way, you should help relieve the animal of its load. That the Gemara answers no. Maybe when it says there that wine you not chayiv, that's talking about loading. That's on the hatina part. To load it up, then you wouldn't be chayiv. Okay, the Gemara's second raya is a similar brisa discussing a similar case, give slightly different halachos, and uses the terms of the pasuk v'chodalta and azev tazev. So azev tazev is where you have to help. V'chodalta is where you can depart, as the language of the pasuk uses. It says it rhetorically as if to say you can't, but we use it as v'chadalta, sometimes you can. So the first case the Brisa discusses if the animal belongs to Kichavim and the package that's on it belongs to Yisrael. There it says v'chadalta, you don't have to help out. Says what happened to Tzar B'Chaim? Obviously Tzar B'Chaim is not a deraisa. Gemara says no. Maybe we're talking about loading. We're not talking about unloading. Says Gemara, so then go to the next case. If the animal belongs to Yisrael and the package belongs to Kichavim, there you do have to help out. If you're just talking about loading, why should you have to help out if the package belongs to an Kichavim? So the Gemara says no, because of the tsar of Yisrael, that he's being delayed, that his animal is being held off. Says Gemara, so then the first case also, where the package belongs to Yisrael, again he's being held off. So you should help because of the pain that's being caused to him also. So it says no, there it's referring to the Yisrael wasn't there. The driver of the animal was someone else, and that was an Eved Kichavim. And in the Seifa, the driver was Yisrael, and therefore you have to worry about it. Now it says, why did you decide that the ratio of the driver is an Eved Kichavim and the Seifa the driver is Yisrael? The Rice didn't say anything about who the driver is. The Rice says it's logical that the person who owns the animal is going to be the one who will choose the driver, and the driver will be the same as the owner. And it's not going to be the same as the owner of the package. It'll be the owner is the same as the owner of the animal. So now the Gemara says, but it says v'chadalta and azev tazev. So that's the pasuk of prika, of unloading. You can't say that we're referring to loading here. So Gemara says, okay, you're right, this is a good proof, but this is Rabbi Glili. We already know that Rabbi Glili holds Tzar B'Chaim is not a deraisa. We're asking according to the Rabbanan. Gemara's next two rayas are about the concept of a friend and an enemy. So first you have a brisa that says, let's say you have two animals, one is being loaded, one is being unloaded. Which one should you help? So the brisa says, without specifying, it seems to be logical that the brisa would have said that you should help first the one that's being unloaded because of Tzar B'Chaim. The brisa refers to a case where the one that is being unloaded is your friend, and the one that's being loaded is your enemy. So you should go help your enemy load before you help your friend unload. And the reason is to bend against your natural inclination to help your friend. You should go help your enemy to fight back against the Eitzar. So there's the Gemara, but Tzar B'Chaim was deraisa. You should still do Tzar B'Chaim first. Versus no, even if Tzar B'Chaim is a deraisa, breaking your Eitzar is more important. Now then we're going to the next brisa, which also talks about a sainei, and it says that this enemy that we're referring to is only a Yisrael, not an Eved Kichavim. The Gemara assumes is referring to the pasuk which says if you see the animal of your enemy breaking under its load, you should go help. So the Gemara says that means to say that only if the enemy is Yisrael should you go help. If the enemy is Eved Kichavim, you don't have to. So basically the way the Gemara is understanding this brisa is it's saying you only have to do mitzvah of prika if it's Yisrael, not if it's an akum. Now if there is Tzar B'Chaim deraisa, then for sure you should have to anyway. Gemara answers, no, we weren't talking about the pasuk, we were talking about the brisa, the Mishnah, which said you should go help your friend, you should go help your enemy before you help your friend, irrespective of which one is which mitzvah. That's only talking about if it was a Yisrael. But if it was an Akum, then that would not be correct.